I currently work for Journey Center for Safety and Healing out of the Cleveland area, and have worked. And the organization has changed names over the years. I've worked for them for 23 years now, and as an art therapist, and my role within that position, I think, is pretty unique in that, um, I mean, it's shifted over the years, and there's a programming focus that I like to consider as very milieu um, uh, driven, meaning that uh, everything that I do programmatically within the shelter is supporting a therapeutic milieu. So, like, rather than go in as an art therapist and have like scheduled sessions, let's just say with children or families, I do programming in the evenings 3 nights a week, but my time there is also spent with supporting youth advocates and other advocates within the shelter environment to maintain that therapeutic milieu, so that every interaction has the potential to improve, um, and make the space a therapeutic space. Not that everyone's getting therapy. That's a really important distinction. Is that that's not it. But if you're aware of trauma and the impact of trauma, and if all the decisions that you make, um, have that in mind, then everything that you do is going to have a therapeutic impact. I like to reference Dr. Bruce Perry talks about, like, he's done a ton of work with trauma. He has an entire institute and organization that focuses very specifically on the effects of trauma. He just recently, published a book with Oprah, that I would definitely recommend. But he talks about how, like, the impact that a community has is and can be more powerful than like scheduled therapy. So, for example, he talks about how, someone who, um, like a child who's experienced trauma, can go to the barber, can go to the school, can then go to an after school like athletic program. And if the barber and the teacher and the coach are all interacting with this child in a way that is not judgmental, is really about not what's wrong with you, but what's happened to you, and is supportive and kind and consistent, the impact of those three people throughout the day is going to create a wash that has such a greater impact than what would be like scheduled therapy for 1 hour a week. And so I like to think about the work that I do at the shelter is is like that. Like, how can we collectively, what can I do as an art therapist and working with my colleagues? What can we do collectively so that any family that comes to us feels that wash? For me, like, artistic expression is the most direct and honest pathway to self. Like we as human beings get really adept at censoring and protecting ourselves with our words. Like, what we say and do with one another, we protect ourselves by the words we choose to communicate, by how we choose to communicate, to kind of defend ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all kind of have to put up some barriers, and boundaries are good and whatnot. But art bypasses all that. So, like, when we're and I'm not just talking about visual art, but like, art is a direct pathway to self, and there's no censor there. So, like, you're going to get the most true and honest entryway to self through creative artistic expression. And and then combined with that, I like to reference one of my mentors as an art therapist. His name is Michael Franklin. He works at Naropa out in Colorado now. is he refers to art as a contemplative practice that takes us to our inherent goodness. We are inherently good. And so if that pathway is a direct conduit to that inherent goodness, and if artistic expression isn't looked at as like a frivolous sort of, activity that's like a hobby, that it's a necessity, then align all of those things together. And what it says is like, we are all here to know ourselves better by creative expression. And when I think about my role as an art therapist, my job is to just make sure, and you already referenced this, is to make sure that people just don't feel judged. They're free to be themselves. And I'm there to create a space so that that conduit to self can be a healthy one. And honestly, like I've learned this over the years, is that when people have that direct access to self, sometimes it can be scary. Sometimes you can create something and look at it, and it can make you feel even more uncomfortable or more anxious or more. And if the space is safe enough, then you can have the conversation with self. Like you can look at that external representation of yourself and say, all right, that's me. How do I come to terms with looking at that and identifying self and being more comfortable with self? And that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what an art therapist does. I can tell you, like when I write music, and also when I perform music with people, that synergy, like holy cow, like there's no way that I could use words to describe it. It's like it's in the air. You can feel this synergy beyond your body, and you can feel it in your body. You can feel it in your head. You can feel it because music has that auditory like entryway. But like I've always felt this way. I can see it in the air. Like for me, it's really it's just a amazingly powerful process. And like if you're with a group of people that isn't going to judge you for what comes out, that's just a beautiful thing, And if you're with people that when something comes out and they say, do it again, it's okay. Like let's do that again. Let's do that again, but maybe we rework it this way. There's like this collaborative working through and transformation that happens. And that can happen with art too. Like when you're doing art with people, if you're doing art with a therapist, if like visual art, I mean, the critique process for visual art, if done well, does the exact same thing. It's just utterly transformative. So like the process of creating, if the space is conducive to it, it's just totally transformative. Like it's my life's work, like when I'm done and gone, I would think that I don't know that this would be true, but I would hope that most people would look at the work I've done as a therapist, the work I've done with domestic violence, as being my life's work. And the best way I can describe like how it affects me is like it's just had the most significant impact on me. Like I've had a lot of other jobs. I do a lot of things. And there's nothing that's had a greater impact on me than the work that I've done with the children and families in the domestic violence shelter. I mean, to me, and I've said this to a number of people, and it's not like I'm like disclosing like details, but I think I'll speak for myself and from the colleagues I've worked with over the years is like we don't end up doing this work by accident. We all come from a place of our experiences. And I don't do the work that I do necessarily to heal myself. Like I've worked through my own stuff, I've done my work. But I still feel like just a draw and a need to connect with people that are working through stuff. I feel like there's something incredibly rewarding about just being with children and families that are working through stuff and helping them to feel like it's going to be okay. It's yes, it's tough. And I don't even have to say that, but just being with them, acknowledging that I'm not here to judge you. And let's figure out how maybe even for a few minutes we can do some stuff that makes you feel like it's okay. Like just last night I was working with families at the shelter, and on Mondays I like to do programming that just makes people feel like it's a regular day where they can just kind of like take any of the like difficult stuff that they might be struggling with and just put it somewhere else for at least an hour and have fun in a really healthy way, and not have to think about the fact that they don't have a home, that this is their current temporary home, and you can still have fun, and you can still enjoy each other's company. And like last night, we did that for an hour, and I guarantee you, for that hour, those like 14 people that were hanging out with me were able to suspend all the stuff that they're carrying with them, all that really bad stuff. I was able to help them to kind of put it on a shelf for an hour, and to me, that's pretty awesome. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm not trying to fix them. They don't need to be fixed. They need somebody that's going to help them recognize that it's going to be okay. And for right now, let's just put that on the shelf and have some fun. And so to me, that's like, is there anything better than that? Like to have some just mental and physical respite from what weighs on you. So that for me is like, I'm good at that. So why wouldn't I do it?